We have Annie Grieve with us today, who is one of our educators. She's located out in Spokane.
Spokane, Washington.
I got it right this time. Awesome.
So proud of you.
Thanks for joining us. As some of you are aware, or if you're not, we do free live education pretty much every Monday. There are some Mondays where we don't because we're at a show, like ABS Chicago, Premier Orlando happens on a Monday. So those Mondays we don't have education. But since the pandemic happened, at this point, 18, 19, 20 months ago, we've been offering free education on Mondays to everyone. So if this is your first time tuning in and you weren't aware of that, you can find all of that education on our YouTube channel for free. So we have consultations, updos, haircutting, styling, coloring, color techniques, just Q&As, all kinds of fun stuff over on our YouTube channel, which is Shark Fin Shears on YouTube. And our Instagram is Shark Fin Shears, all one word. So I am thrilled to have Annie with us today. I haven't had a chance to see you in quite some time, but I always love watching you do education, listening to you do education. So Annie's going to be doing a really cool class for us today, and I get to sit front row ringside. So this is meant to be an interactive class. So I'm going to spotlight Annie. I'm going to turn it over to her. But if you have questions, please either ask in the Q&A or in the chat, and I will facilitate those questions to Annie. Okay. So again, Annie, thank you for joining us. Take it away. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Annie Grieve. I've been a hairdresser longer than I can count, because I'm a hairdresser. How many of us want to do math? But let's just say it was the very, very early 90s when I got started. And I love that the 90s are back, because it's all hip pocket stuff to me at this point. Something that I have, before I start, my Instagram is Annie G Money, and so is my TikTok. And I put a bunch of hair videos up on my TikTok. So I would love it if you guys would follow me on both of those platforms. My Instagram is a combination of the work that I do and the life that I live. So it's not a brilliantly curated list of cuts and colors and stuff. It's a lot of fun and a lot of my dogs as well as hair. Something I've become aware of during shutdown and pandemic is a lot of our clients have lost hair, and it's really showing up around the hairline. So I thought, well, this is an amazing time to be hairdressers and to help people feel really good about themselves by subtly altering what's happening around their face. As you can see, in the video, I am no stranger to the hair loss from the stress that we all experienced in, like Willie said, the last 20 months. So I am going to be going through all of these techniques today, including how to connect the sides to the fringe area so we don't get the dreaded stair step that every client is like, I've got this weird hole right here. I'll help you guys figure out how to visually connect that. Let's get into the meat of it, since it is indeed a Monday and we started a little bit late. We find our fringe section by, this is the mirror image. So if I start like randomly twisting my sweet client's head around, it's because I'm watching myself on my laptop. So I know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to use this as my mirror, and it's a flip of what we would see in the mirror. So just so you know, how we find a classic fringe section is by balancing our comb on top of the head. And from here, you're like, what? I can't see anything. So I'm going to turn my client. And in a real world situation, of course, we would step to the side. And resting my comb on top of her head, you can see I have 2 points where the comb comes off. In the back, it's a great place to build volume, is to start elevating from there. And in the front, we pick the section right where the comb comes off the head, split it down the center so we have control of the hair. And then we start at recession, like smack dab in the middle of recession, and draw a line straight to the top of the point on one side and straight to the top of that point on the other side. And we end, I know this seems a little beginner, but it's always good to go back to the basics so that we can learn how to break rules. And once we get done, you see I've got a nice heavy triangle. The reason we go off of where the comb meets the head, if we go back further, we end up with those pieces of hair that swing through the side. And if we come further forward than this, your client may want to push hair out of the way because it will tend to fall into their face. So you got that client that's got the weird little chunk that always falls forward. My guess is it lies within this triangle of hair because this is always gonna fall forward into the face. Okay, so I am going to pull the rest of the hair out of the way because right now we're not going to deal with that. And the first fringe I'm going to talk to you about is chin length framing. So there's a lot of clients that don't want bangs right now, but they want something to blend in or to just give themselves an update, something different. And trimming the hair to chin length gives a really soft opening around the face. It's still long enough to go up in ponytails and braids while they're working out. And it adds a really nice sense of a refresh. I think that when we're working with our clients, we need to give them something new at least every 2 or 3 haircuts so they keep coming back, because how many times have you heard, you know, I really loved my hairdresser, but she just kept doing the same thing every time, or they kept doing the same thing every time. Okay, so we've got chin length framing. The first thing I'm going to do is split this section so that the hair in front comes straight to the edges of recession, and we will deal with this section later. So I've got my trusty little clips. Something that I think is really fascinating about doing framing of the face this way is that we've got some choices. The first thing we look for is we pick the hair up, we comb it out and push back, and that will tell us right where the natural fall is going to be, and we split it off to the sides. Now, if I pull the hair forward and up, over directing forward, as it falls back down, we'll have a really soft, lovely C shape around the face. If I bring it back and low, when I drop it forward, I'm going to have a really nice inversion to the hair that is a wonderful way to connect the front of your hair to an inverted bob. So you don't get that funky little like beveling at the very edge, because we don't have the hair here. We need to connect it by over directing it back. Since we're talking about fringe benefits and moving toward shorter and shorter fringe trends that are happening right now, I am not going to do this cut to show you what I'm talking about. Instead, I'm going to over direct forward and up so you can see the soft C shape that I'm talking about. When I am wet cutting, I tend to use my slider shears because I really like how I can carve into the hair and texturize as I'm working with my slider. And Willie, do you want to talk to them about the benefits of the slider shear besides just the swivel? Let's see, I'll get it in there. The thumb also moves back and forth. So it's got additional ergonomic benefits to it. We know that we want the shortest part of her fringe to sit at chin or lower. So the first thing I do is I take a very tiny piece from the center and I come up from underneath and I carve out. So it's shorter at her face and longer as it goes forward. Then we're going to take this lower section, bring it out and forward. So this hair is traveling much farther than the center. And I'm going to come in behind and just work through creating a soft shape that when it drops down, creates really soft, natural face framing. And then you bring the other side up. You take that little guide that you made and comb it toward you. There's my guide. And I just go in and connect this side. So it matches my fingers, but it's not precise. And we drop that down. And now we have this really soft, lovely face framing that isn't technically fringe, but it gives our client a really nice update to their shape. And you can incorporate the rest of this, or depending on how much fringe your client wants, maybe just stop right at that first section that connects from edge to edge. The most important part about this is combing everything toward the center of the shape, so that as you're cutting, you're over directing the hair to the center and it gets longer as you trim. I like to scoop from the inside out because that creates a cupping in the hair and helps it to cup against my client's jawline a little bit more. Like that. Erica has very strong forward growing hair, so her hair kind of always falls in her face. This is Erica. Okay, so this is what I mean by chin length. The shortest part is pretty close to the length of her chin when you pull it back, and then it gets longer and softer as it goes down. So in all of my years of hairdressing, the one thing that just drove me nuts was how many times a client would go, I've got this weird chunk, this stair step in my hair, and I can't figure out how to get rid of it. I figured out we need to over direct and disconnect the front section of the hair. So in front of the ear or maybe to the top of the ear, depending on the density of your client's hair. If her hair is really silky and low volume, you might want to go back a little bit further, because if you just take this first small section right here, she's not going to experience the visual connection that someone with more dense hair would. You might want to go back all the way at a diagonal back to maybe just behind the ear in order to visually connect that. for our purposes today, I'm going to take my line from just behind recession to the top of the ear and pin the hair that I'm not working with out of the way. I like to work really clean so I know where I am and what I'm doing all of the time. So we know our guide to length is this right here. And instead of taking this hair and just connecting it literally, I am going to see where it needs to fall naturally. And there's not a ton of hair right here, but I now have my guide to length. And I can pick up this section knowing that I have about 3 inches to work with, and go in and just trim off these ends, which then visually connects the fringe into the length, and it creates this really nice, soft, visual connection, not literal connection. And that way, as this hair travels back out of her face, it connects perfectly to the hair underneath. I'm going to do it again on the other side so you get a good example of that. So we go from just behind recession to the top of the ear. Right there. Turn her a little bit. And at natural fall, we can see that right here is where we want our connection to start. Well, no, you can't see that.
Yeah, Annie, there you go. Thank you.
There. Here, we know we want to remove about this much length on the side. So we're going to pick it up. There's that length. And we go in and just scoop that out. My computer keeps going to sleep on me. I set it to stay awake for 2 hours last night and it didn't listen. Okay. So now when it goes back down to natural fall, it has this really beautiful connection to it, which is how your client will wear her hair. The bangs won't sit directly over her face. And I've been using this a lot in the last, 6 months maybe, to help people camouflage that, 6 to 9 month grow out that's been happening with the pandemic hair loss, which I think is kind of great. All right. So look at that. We've already done chin length framing and blending the sides. And now we're on to curtain fringe, which of course we all know is still so hot. Everybody's loving them. Everyone feels like Brigitte Bardot on the French Riviera with their curtain fringe. And I'm leaning into that because we all need to feel good right now. So the chin length face framing is very similar to curtain fringe. It's just longer. One of the little tricks that I've been doing with curtain fringe is to part it off the way I had it before, where you take that first amount of hair, about a 1/2 inch off of the hairline, and instead of doing the classic thing that everyone's been doing where they just pull it over, I'm taking a small triangle section, like right up from the nose, And this is just a nice way to update curtain fringe that maybe you've been doing recently and you feel like it's getting a little stale. Maybe your client's not as into it. So you take this little guy, and we know we want our curtain fringe to stay longer, but this piece exclusively, I'm going to take just slightly shorter. And you see I'm holding my hands close to my body to practice good ergonomics. And I'm going to take my shears and just come in and scoop this out so that this section is a little shorter than everything else that I'm going to do. So now it falls just slightly shorter, and we can take these pieces and visually connect, or take a tiny slice from this shorter section on the far side of your side piece and see your guide to length and connect that way, so that the center part is slightly shorter than everything else, and it gives them just some nice softness right around the face to play with. And then we pick up a tiny section of the center, and we pick up the other side, find our guide, and go in and chip that out. And that creates a little more visual interest, and it gives our clients that refresh that they might like. And then we go back with this section over the top, and we're going to do a slight angle so that we get some of that very small center area, and over direct. I like to do the corner of the opposite eye for my over direction kind of goal. And we go in and chip that out. I tend to cut my curtain fringe at about a 45-degree angle, so that as it drapes back across the rounded shape, you get more of that rounded cupping effect that is so beautiful with curtain fringe. So now we go from the top, slide down. Keep that piece. And we're at about the corner of the eye, 45-degree angle. I'm just going to go in and chip out the length. And we get that nice rounded curve to the fringe. And now she can flip it back. She can have it completely off her face if she wants to. I love it. Okay, so now we have that really pretty rounded. Let me go in and just, those aren't supposed to be there. There. So now I'm going to teach you guys something called, well, what I call West Coast Convertible Fringe. And the reason I called it that is, one, who doesn't want to be in a convertible? And two, out here on the West Coast, we like to have options. We want to be able to wear a center part, flip it to a side part. We want to be able to have, you know, like that really deep, heavy part, almost like side swept fringe. But, you know, the side swept fringes, days are numbered. Let's say that. With the center part gaining more and more popularity. But why not keep it around a little bit? And so we have the West Coast Fringe, which is taking this nice V shape and turning it into a W shape like the W in the West Coast Fringe. And what you do is normally you would cut this deep V shape in the hair, and that would be your curtain fringe. But with West Coast convertible fringe, we're going to take this and we are going to cut off this outside corner so that the fringe looks like the letter W. So it'll have corner missing to a point, up to the highest point, down, and back up again. All right. So we're going to take this and comb it down. So there is our shortest hair. And we're going to come in behind. That's our guide to length. And I'm just going to slide cut down to the point. So now we have short and short with long in the center. I'm going to come over and do the same thing on this side. Have my guide to length in the center. Comb it down to natural fall. And just slide down to the point. So now we have shorter hair on both sides and shorter hair in the center. And it has the illusion, or it's not the illusion, it looks like a W. And what this does, we know that short hair pushes long hair. So when you blow dry it all over to one side, it has that softness of side swept fringe. And you can go either direction with it because of that W shape. Your client has so many more options in how to wear her hair now, or how to wear her fringe. And it's really beautiful if you go in at the very end with either your regular cutting shears, or what I have been doing a lot of is using my eraser. And I go in with my eraser and just pick up individual pieces through the top and just chip in and remove that weight, and it creates this lovely surface softness that is so beautiful on clients. And I like to go in and personalize it, as you saw that I was doing earlier, picking it up and taking just a few strands of hair at a time and softening it out so that you get this nice lift and volume and separation. I think I use my eraser on every client that I work with because it has the teeth on both sides, and it creates this beautiful, soft texture without a hard line in it. And that is, it saves me so much time behind a chair when especially if I'm running a little late, because come on, we're hairdressers. And sometimes we just need to drink coffee. So there is the West Coast convertible fringe, which is just, my clients have been freaking out over it. And I'm getting so many Instagram shout outs from my clients about, look at my cool new hair. I didn't know it did this. So that's another great reason to put that into your repertoire. Are there any questions about the West Coast Fringe? Anything we need to know about?
We're good over here, Annie. Everyone seems to be following along great. The feedback is great, but no questions.
Okay, that's excellent. that means I'm doing it right.
Yes.
The next is the heavy fringe, and it, with the advent of the 90s coming back, as you can see in my little baby doll dress, I'm rocking the 90s hard. And I know if you wore it the first time, you're not supposed to wear it the second time, but I don't care. Heavy fringe is back. This is the basis of every strong mullet, every strong shag cut. I don't see the shag going away anytime soon. And my favorite way to cut a shag is in 3 sections. The first section is the fringe area. The second section is a horseshoe shaped section. And the third section is everything that lies underneath the top of the head, because the whole shape is based on what we do here. And this point of the fringe section is your guide to length, essentially, for your entire shag or mullet, because the top is always going to be pretty heavy. You know, the wolf cut is kind of, I'm sorry, I can't remember the word, defined by that fringe kind of falling down over the top of the more anime mullet bottom. So this is a really smart, important shape to have in your toolbox. There's 3 different ways that we can cut our heavy fringe. In fact, I've got a little bit of room on here. So I'm going to show you guys. When you cut a straight line on a round shape, you get a curved line. So if we want our bangs to do this, we pull them out straight, parallel to our chest or perpendicular to our chest, and cut. If we want them to look deeper V, we make that kind of a shape. Carrot, I think is what it's called. And you get your curtain fringe that way by over directing the V. But if we want a perfectly straight, very architecturally strong fringe, we make a stop sign shape and cut those corners off. And that will give you a very straight line on a rounded object. So that, I think, is one of the coolest things I learned just a couple of years ago. And my niece is a physicist. This is one of the stories that I always think is so funny. She was talking about something in outer space, like astrophysics paperwork that she was doing for college. And she was talking to me about how things move in outer space. And I went, oh yeah, it's like cutting bangs. If you cut a straight line on a round object, you get a round line. And she went, oh my gosh, yes. And freaked out, and then said a whole bunch of stuff I didn't understand because I don't know anything about physics except for how to cut bangs. And ended up using my comment in her thesis, which I, of course, I'm a Leo. Of course I love that. All right, so heavy fringe. First, I'm going to do the straight pulled out cut so you can see the roundness, and then I'll do the stop sign so you can see how that looks as well. Traditionally, I would stand directly in front of my client to do this because it's much easier to assess the shape you're creating when you're standing right in front of your client. But for the benefit of class, I am going to stand slightly off center so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Iris to iris is usually my guide for cutting this. So right here in the center. But let's say when you assess your client's needs, the density of their hair, how far apart their eyes are from one another, how much space is happening here on the side, you will want to gauge what you're doing based on that. So let's say your client has a lot of room here, but her eyes are very close set. You might want to expand this center section to create the illusion that her eyes are a little bit wider set. And it will also with the curving, we'll close off this section a little bit more to create more balance in her face shape. So for me, doing heavy fringe like this, it's very much personalized and tailored to the needs of the client. Erica has a perfectly symmetrical face, of course. We got Denzel Washington, we got Jensen Ackles, and we've got our mannequins that all have perfectly symmetrical faces. That's about it. All right, so what I do to account for any growth directions that are gonna bug me, I drop the hair onto my finger and then gently hold it as a guideline. And I can either come in like this or I can come in like this. Personally, I like to use my swivel and come in across and just do a nice straight cut. And then I connect side A. You guys don't belong in here. So I'm just going to pull it straight out, just like I had that first section. Allow it to rest in my hand and connect it. And same thing on the other side. We're going to bring it straight out and connect it. And now the fringe is rounded around her face. You can see it's a little longer on the sides than the center, and that is that straight line on a rounded object. To create perfectly straight bangs, I would have pulled the hair ever so slightly toward me and taken off that corner. And you do the same thing over here. This is really weird cutting it where I'm trying to show you what I'm doing because I'm so used to standing right in front of my clients. Do you love it when you're working on your client, you're standing right in front of them and they're just going, staring right in your eyes while you're cutting their bangs? To me, that's worse than when you're shampooing them and they're just smiling at you from the shampoo bowl. Close your eyes. I overcome that with cutting the front of their hair by saying, you need to relax your face. When you're looking at me, your eyebrows go up, and I don't want to make your fringe shorter than you want it. So now we drop down the top section, and we can follow our guide to length. And you'll notice I'm not point cutting. I'm not doing any chipping or texture. The hallmark of the heavy fringe is that it is very blunt and heavy. You go in and just knock off that corner. And of course, the most famous example of the heavy fringe is Zooey Deschanel. Like, she's the icon that set the world on fire for these. But there are quite a few other people. Another person I think of is Jenny Lewis, the musician. She also has this really heavy fringe, and then she has naturally curly hair behind it, and it's just beautiful. I love that the alternating rhythm of very smooth fringe, especially this heavy fringe, and then naturally curly hair in the back. I think it just looks beautiful. Okay, so our next step is undercut baby bangs. Everyone knows baby bangs. They are so hot right now. They're so cool. They're so hot, they're cool. What? Does anybody have any questions about straight line, curved line, stop sign?
I'd love to tell you they do. So either you're doing fantastic or everyone is just not up for asking questions on a Monday.
Right.
I would like to think it's the first, that you're doing fantastic. I mean, I'm following along quite well. So
let me know if anyone goes, oh no, I'm sleeping. Or this is the best class I've ever had.
No, the feedback is great. No one's asking questions. They loved talking about the shampoo bowl. They're loving the techniques, but no questions.
Good. My design inspo for the Undercut baby bangs is Halsey. Her debut on Allure magazine with her just brilliant, naturally curly mullet. If you haven't seen it, hold on. No, I took it out of here. I thought I had it on my little side table. It's the quintessential mullet wolf hybrid because it's not so long in the front. But I do recommend you guys either hop online after class or whatever, just type in Halsey Allure magazine and look at her photo shoot because it's amazing. She might also be the most beautiful pregnant lady I've ever seen. Just saying. Okay, so undercut baby bangs are one of the ways that I've got clients who constantly complain that their fringe section doesn't have the lift or the volume that they want in it. And I will do this all the way down to this length. Anything longer than this, and the undercut looks awkward. And so I have clearly tried it. And it's not good. It's not good. So you want to keep this undercut vibe at heavy fringe or shorter. And I've got all of my clippies in the back of her hair now. Do you love that when you've completely gotten into what you're doing so hard and you can't find your clips? And then you realize you have like 6 clips holding the same piece of hair back. I do that more with highlighting than I do with hair cutting, but it does happen. All right, so we're going to do that same parting that I've been doing. And the reason why I do the fringe section in 2 parts is because once you get that front area established, it's the foundation of the cut. This falls down over the top and embellishes it. But if you try and do an entire fringe section at one whack, it will be slightly beveled and have just that little graduation. And also it's too much hair. It's going to bend in your blades. All right. So we have our little fringe section. And I want you guys to see that the way this hair was sewn in, it's already cupping against her forehead because it was sewn in to have that bounce. So I'm going to be a little careful with the length on this, but with a real person, comb the hair back and forth, check to see what the fringe is doing, and compensate for cowlicks, growth directions, and density of hair. I'm going to take a section right out of the front, right there. And one way that you can find the section is to pull the whole fringe area into your fingers and push back. And where it splits is where you want to pick up and work with the hair. So I'll grab this chunk first. Each one of those splits is a different growth direction or whatever. So I'm going to start in really close and create a C shape by slide cutting through the hair. There's the next little section. So we start close and we curve it out. So my shears are going like this as I slide through the fringe section. And this really creates lift and cupping of the forehead. Just go in, curve it out. And with these, I tend to over direct the last section toward the center. So that it has a little bit of camouflage over the recession. A lot of clients do not like that recession to show. And as our clients age, we've got the boomers are a huge generation, and that's a lot of money just sitting there waiting to get their hair done. And they don't want to look like their moms. They want edgy. They want, if you ask a little bit, you're going to find out. They're like, I don't want to look like the ladies who have lunch. I hear that all the time. Like, can you make it look a little more like I'm an artist? And so here's a great way, full face exposure, to give everyone, including the baby boomers, some funk. The youngest baby boomers are 58, I think. So they're sort of split. They're not really Gen X. They're not really boomers. So now look at that. She's got this edgy, spiky, funky fringe, but this is an undercut. So we're going to take what I call the savior section. If you take your client's fringe too long, you've got the section behind it. And this is, not only is this a cool way to undercut baby bangs, but it's also a great way at longer lengths to rescue yourself when you realize that you've made the fringe too short and your client might be a little grouchy. So now we go into the center and we find the longest length of the hair that we just cut. We pull it all the way out. So there is the longest length of the hair that I just cut. It's just gone through my fingers. And now I can visually connect this to the hair underneath. And it's a great way to create that feeling of being rock and roll and sexy and edgy, and give your clients that lifted, sexy, messy, spiky fringe. And you can go back over the top if it feels a little too heavy and not quite shattered out enough. And you take your scissors and you just cut through like this. And it creates the lift and the architectural support for this longer hair that looks so beautiful with that funky undercut. Oh, Erica, I'm so sorry. So see how it's baby bangs, but it's not baby bangs. It's got that messy, sexy, rock and roll downtown vibe to it without having to commit to full art school fringe, which is what I call the full baby bangs. These ones are so much fun because your client is into it and up for it. And I like to just go straight in with my shears and carve out the shape right on top of their skin. Once I've done that undercut, so they get this really cool, rounded, short, full face exposure. And then they have all of their length around the sides. And it gives you that sexy art student, art school kid look to it. And I love how it isn't connected at all to this length, but it's just got that funky, messy, seriously artistic chick or dude or them vibe. You can go back in with your eraser and pull everything to the center and chop into it even more to make it really textured. Ta-da! Okay, so we had chin length framing. You use your guide, tiny little guide, and then over direct and over direct to create the softness. Pull it back to create the perfect inverted bob. We had blending the sides in. Don't physically blend them, visually blend them by pulling the sides forward to connect visually when it hangs. We had the curtain fringe, which is a small piece in the front, tiny triangle, and then over direct to the opposite side of the triangle to trim. We had the West Coast convertible fringe, which makes a W shape, and your client can wear curtain fringe or shove it to either side. We had heavy fringe, think Zooey Deschanel cupping the forehead, the undercut baby bangs for lift and texture, and the full baby bangs, which go great with a mullet. Yay! I hope you guys got a ton out of this class. I hope that you're able to utilize at least a couple of the techniques that I showed today or tomorrow when you're working on a client. Again, I'm Annie G Money on Instagram and on TikTok. I think it's all lowercase on both of them. I would love it if you guys would follow me. I will be opening my own academy probably next year when rent is lower. That's my guess. And I look forward to hearing what the feedback was for the class.
Fantastic job, Annie. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to do a class. Annie has a code, so for everyone who joined in, if you would like to give shark fin shears a try, you can purchase any shear from our beauty line using the code AG, the letter A, the letter G. Purchase any shear from our beauty line and you'll get 2 free texture shears and a free razor. And
that's awesome.
And that credit will go to Annie. So Annie, thank you for joining us. Fantastic work. The feedback was amazing in the comments. People loved the stop sign and the different references that you had, and the options for customizing different styles, connecting, disconnected, volume. So great stuff. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again in a week. Annie, it was great seeing you.
It was so good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, so we'll catch up soon. Have a great Monday.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.